Lots of RHONY news coming out. We're going to talk about Winter House highlights. We want to talk all about the Toms, Craig and Paige, Jessica. Not really want to, but feel like we have to. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Iris.
And we're the Real Couchwives.
Carrie, so what do you think about the RHONY rumors that we're hearing about the legacy cast? What are your thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, I feel like we have to put like alleged in front of everything, a la Erica, but
yeah.
in this situation, it actually is not confirmed. Yeah, so Ramona hilariously saying it's not for me anymore at this time. Okay, like let's be real, she like definitely was not asked back, right?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. There's no way.
No, I think they finally have had enough of Ramona, which like I was happy with. I think a lot of people were happy. What's funny is I was looking online and like there's still some like kind of mixed feelings about it, right? Because like she did give us like reality TV gold for a long time.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I feel like so many people now are able to like look back nostalgically at the early seasons of RHONY and like why we loved it so much. And I do totally understand that, but at the same time, like the last season of RHONY was just such a disaster. And honestly, like Ramona's portrayal throughout that, like her portrayal even in Ultimate Girls Trip, I would say, I just don't think it warrants her coming back, really. Like, I don't think her performance was anything that we're gonna miss.
It's like, it's not fun anymore, right? Like, I feel like there's this line of like fun chaos and like likable villain, and I feel like Ramona tread that line for a while. The past few years, I would even say, she started to become unwatchable. Like, feel like you're watching someone's just like spiral. It's just not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to a certain extent, like she became too aware of, I think, and this is, I think, what people complain a lot about housewives that stay around for such a long time, is they become too aware of how they do this. So you're not really getting like that real authentic experience anymore that you are experiencing when you have like a season 1 of a cast or something. It just becomes too overproduced.
Yeah. It was a lot. Although I will say I like that her ending was Ultimate Girls Trip, because you take her out of New York and like other cast members who aren't in New York actually called her out on like all of her insanity and hypocrisy and like just being delusional, and it was so validating to see as a viewer.
Yeah, I think you're completely right about that. I do think it was interesting. I feel like towards the end there, they were trying to have a bit of like a Ramona like arc to where we could kind of like have her maybe be redeemed for the next season of RHONY. But no, I think overall, just with the way that like that last season played out, and then having to kind of like completely go back to the drawing board and start off with 2 new casts potentially, it just kind of goes to show that like, yeah, it was time.
It was. So the lineup is Luann, Sonia, Dorinda, Jill, and Kelly.
Kelly Ben-Simone. Time to get her back.
Like, is it though?
I don't know. What are your thoughts? What were your feelings about Kelly on those early seasons?
Oh man, yeah, Kelly. I feel like Kelly's one of those ones too where it's like it's not likable chaos. It's like the chaos that makes you feel angry and scared. And like we already have so much of that in Beverly Hills. Like we don't want to be angry watching Housewives anymore.
Yeah, I can kind of understand why they brought her back. I think, she still brings a certain level of spice. I think it's been a long enough time since we've seen her that we do think that maybe she'll bring something new. Especially since we have now seen like Dorinda back in her element. We've seen Jill back in her element. Kelly is a bit of a wild card, as she always was in those early seasons as well. I think we don't know what we're gonna get from her, and I think that's what's kind of exciting about her. For me, I was not a Kelly fan.
No, I mean, I don't know if many people were. Like, you get to a point where you're like, I almost feel bad watching this. Like, it's like...
Yeah, oh yeah, 1,000,000%. I really thought that she was like, there has to be something wrong with you right now. Like, this cannot be normal.
No, like not wanting, like without commenting, obviously, on anyone's like mental health. Like there was something that wasn't adding up. Like the level of delusion was like surpassed any other housewife that we've seen. I was reading online as well that people think that she was really like a good foil for Bethany, and like without Bethany being there, like we wonder how it'll play out. But then Dorinda's there, and like Dorinda still is popping off, especially when she has a little bit to drink.
Yes.
So I don't know, that could be pure chaos.
Yeah, I can definitely see why, especially because I do think that like Dorinda has a little bit more of like the liberal leaning kind of like political views, and from what I understand, Kelly does have more kind of like right wing, like Trump leaning
Oh,
political
really?
views. Yeah, so it could be kind of interesting to see if we are going to kind of see similar I guess like Dorinda versus Vicky in Ultimate Girls Trip.
Oh,
Like if that
true.
maybe will play out a little bit, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel like they try to shy away from politics usually. Like that was
I
one of
feel
the
like
few that we saw
RHONY
played
is the
out.
only one that doesn't really shy away necessarily from
No,
politics.
that's it. Like as a
Yeah.
franchise, it's not something that comes up more. Like I know Ramona,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
real like they really tried to get it out of her and she
Yeah.
just was not speaking.
Yeah. But then with like Carol, Dorinda, like I feel like, especially because those seasons were happening during like the Hillary Trump presidency runs, like those were definitely pretty politically charged seasons.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So the other cast members, Luann, Sonia kind of shoe in, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Dorinda too, I think some people are kind of on the fence, like should she have come off pause or not? In Ultimate Girls Trip, she just kind of seemed like she was putting on a show.
1,000,000%. Yeah. It felt like she had gone and like written lines for herself and was like putting on a comedy routine. Like she knew exactly what like marks she wanted to hit and everything. Like I definitely got that feeling from her
Right?
in that. Yeah.
Jill
Totally.
was funny. I actually liked Jill. I thought it
Yeah.
was hilarious that she tried to like recreate her moment from RHONY, like coming in unannounced and
Yes.
no one got
Yeah,
it. Like she's just
exactly.
meta enough.
Yeah.
But so okay, possibly controversial. I
Okay,
was
yeah.
actually watching some old clips because like it's been so long since I've seen like Kelly and stuff, and I
Mhm.
remembered some of the big fights, like the "you're down here and I'm up here."
Yes.
But I needed to
Classic.
like refresh my memory,
Mhm.
and then I just saw like all the cast in their like kind of heyday, and I
Yeah.
just watching Ramona, you just wonder like, is it just done? Like, should this legacy cast just be like
Mhm.
retired at this
Yeah.
point? Because like to keep bringing them back, the Luann and Sonia one that's supposed to be kind of like,
Oh yeah, like the simple life on
yeah,
the
this
road kind of. Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like that could be funny and I could see how that would still work, but like
Mhm.
just trying to bring back this legacy cast, especially some of which who haven't even like worked together
Yeah.
and aren't really friends. Like I don't know. I don't know how excited I am for it. Like I want to
Yeah.
see how it shakes out, but at the same time, I'm a little bit like, are we just going to keep kind of like ruining the idea of what this once was?
Yeah. I think that's entirely it. I think that we are chasing after something, a time of RHONY that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. And honestly, I kind of would have been interested for them to have done this a bit as like a one-off, of like a little bit of like a ultimate girls trip or something like that, where it's like a short period of time, condensed that all together. We just film them and see what happens. Like that, I feel like I would love. I don't know if we need like a traditional season of them like kind of just like going about their lives and doing all these different things, especially if we are getting a reboot with a new cast.
That's true. That's true. I
Yeah.
would totally get behind that, I
Yeah.
think. And then the one person, also possibly controversial, but like
Uh-huh.
I know Bethany is just like a little bit of a disaster, especially on
Yes.
social media, but
Especially
like
right now.
she's still just such good television. And I find
Yeah.
like she brings out this part of the other characters that like
Mhm.
if they're doing legacy, like
Yeah.
Bethany's legacy. Like I saw a lot of things that came up that like Kelly is not legacy. Like, yeah, maybe
Mhm.
she's good TV, but like when you
Even
think
Dorinda's not really a legacy. Like she came in like what, season 7?
I think so. But
That's
she still like
crazy.
really like made a name for
Yes.
herself.
Oh, 1,000,000%. Yeah.
But no, you're right. Like, and at that point, is it just like the old cast minus Ramona? Like, was all this just so that they
Yeah.
could get Ramona off?
I know. And that was always, I think, the hard thing about trying to do something like a legacy was like, okay, how can we actually recreate this? Because like you weren't gonna bring back Alex, like you're not gonna fly her from Australia to come do RHONY.
She seems to be living like a relatively normal
I
life
know,
too
like
now. So that
I'm
would
so
kind of
happy
be
for her.
that would be a little bit hilarious.
That would have been it would have been definitely been interesting if they had done kind of like, let's actually get them all back together. We'll put them in like New York or whatever for like a week or two and like have that play out. But yeah, I
That
think
would
there
be
was no way that
awesome.
they could have gotten Bethany back to like to be the, and I don't even know if it would be worth it to get Bethany and Kelly and Jill in one room for that to happen. Like, I just think it would be so chaotic.
Well, so Bethany just came out with her new podcast too, right? Her rewatch podcast.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that one?
Just like really goes on this rant about how it's like, you know, a different type of Real Housewives podcast, because it's like she's going to interview smart people, which she says, and like I think she's kind of bringing on celebrities to make it like that much more of a draw, but the celebrity doesn't really add that much to it. Like it's really just Bethany talking and them just being like, so I think like they probably could have done that in a different way. Also, it's just funny for her to kind of be putting down other podcasts, like some aspiring ones like us, because like you're essentially putting down fans, right? Like the other podcasts are created by fans.
Yeah, exactly. People who genuinely love this content and like worship everything about Housewives, and have actually legitimately watched like almost every season of almost every like franchise, right? Like we're not just watching the Housewives, we're watching everything.
That's it. And like so the main reason I wanted to listen was because I like the behind the scenes stuff, and like and she covered Scary Island, which is, you know, one of the most popular episodes, and like there wasn't very much behind the scenes that was learned that didn't already come out in like the panel
interesting
at BravoCon, which actually they went into detail more. So I don't know. I'll probably still listen a little bit just to see. What about you?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to listen to it just because I just don't even know if I want to like give it the time of day. You know, I listened to her last podcast, the one that she did where she was kind of like, oh, I'm like this big like business mogul. I'm gonna like, you know, interview like the guy that created Barstool Sports. I'm gonna interview Mark Cuban, like, and everything. And it was kind of interesting, but it's a lot of her like talking and her opinions. And I think, you know, I guess that is to a certain extent what a podcast is, but I think there's a lot of really good podcasts out there being created by Bravo content creators who are doing incredible jobs. They're still doing behind the scenes things. There's a Reality Bites, the podcast by executive producers from some of these shows that are doing incredible like deep dive information about like what actually goes into making these shows. And I feel like that's where I want to like spend my attention more than like,
that's fair.
her show.
That's fair. It's a lot. She's just so like, I don't know, full of herself, I guess, in a way.
And like she's been so like anti-housewives, and like, you know, separating herself, I think, so much from what ended up being the thing that like brought her all this fame, brought her all this money. She wouldn't have had the same experiences with Skinny Girl Margaritas and Skinny Girl everything had she not had the fan base that came. And to kind of like, you know, bite the hand that feeds you.
But that's exactly what it is. It's it's strange. So that's Legacy. Then there's the new RHONY coming out.
RHONY, I know. What are you thinking? How are you feeling?
I don't know. I was like, that's online fair. People seem pretty not into it now, which I think is not that fair to like the new people. Like we should definitely give them a chance. But one thing that came out that was kind of funny is that they like redid the whole, you know, they totally recasted based on one really bad season, when then I kind of look at the train wreck of like Beverly Hills, where people are calling for multiple people in the cast to be fired for like legitimate reasons, and they're just like, this is fine.
Well, even I think Beverly Hills, to veer off tangent a little bit right here, even Beverly Hills, I think that they're taking a little break. I think they're going to rework this and figure out what they need to do. One of the podcasts that I was listening to, She Speaks Bravo, had one of the executive producers on from some of these shows, and they were talking about how like extensive the what is it called, like when you do like a round table discussion, like you get like people together to kind of like give you their feedback and like take in all that information and be able to kind of like really decide from that kind of like case model like who you're going to keep. So they really are doing like testing to kind of like figure out, okay, what really makes sense, who are we going to keep for all of these shows. And I have to imagine that like because they're doing that for Beverly Hills, they definitely did that for RHONY and decided that like whatever they had wasn't worth keeping.
That's true.
But I don't know, I hold out a little bit of hope for RHONY 2.0. I love Jenna Leon's. I'm excited that she's going to be there. And I think, you know, I'm just trying to like get used to the fact that this is going to be a new show. I do kind of hope that it still has that feeling of New York and kind of captures that energy that was kind of why we initially liked it. But at the same time, like if it is a bunch of influencers, I don't know if I'm going to be interested. I think that's kind of why The Real Girlfriends of Paris was like so hard to watch, was because it just kind of felt like, you know, pseudo influencers living in a city. And yeah,
I actually haven't watched that one.
oh no, I watched the first couple episodes, but it was hard because it's just like these people are kind of my age, maybe a little bit younger. I don't know if I really I can relate to their problems. I don't know if I want to like be living in their problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just not my favorite, but
Fair
yeah.
enough. I mean, we could all just take this time to rewatch RHONY.
Yeah, exactly. The early years, the glory years.
And then we'll have to do we'll do recaps of the rewatches for whoever wants to come along on that journey with us. What number rewatch will this be for you?
Probably 845. It's impossible to say. It's impossible to say. I did want to ask though, so we kind of have a sense of like who's coming back for RHONY Legacy. We have a sense of who's coming like into the world for the RHONY 2.0 reboot. Is there any housewives that we haven't seen in this kind of like world that you kind of either wish that they'd brought into the RHONY reboot, or that you wish we were still going to see in RHONY Legacy?
That's a good question. I mean, now that you talked about it, I feel like I really want to see just like season 1 to 3 cast just now in New York. I feel like that would be really cool. So I like, honestly, like I think it would be fun to bring in Alex back. I never thought I would be saying that because she was never my favorite, but I just think like her contrast to, you know, who has seemingly gone and lived a normal life. I don't really know. That's just kind of like the small bits that I picked up.
Yeah.
Kind of like staying out of the spotlight versus everyone else. I think it would be pretty funny. Like I said, Bethany, you know, controversial, but she did make it what it was.
Yes. And she's a great housewife. Like I will totally give her that. She's an amazing housewife. She gives her all to TV show. And she definitely doesn't hold back and like call people out on their bullshit. And honestly, to a certain extent, that's what you need.
For sure. So who else is there? Like Aviva. I don't know if I need Aviva back.
Aviva would have been interesting.
It would have been fun.
And that's why if they had just done like a RHONY, like let's do like weekends in the Berkshires or whatever, like they did kind of like an ultimate girls trip just with the old RHONY cast. They could have gone through each season and like had them all together. It would have been so interesting to see these people back together.
That's so true. Honestly, so Carol, I always loved Carol, even though some people think she's boring.
Yeah,
we love Carol.
I did love Carol, and I have a bit of a special place in my heart for Tinsley. I thought that she was kind of like fun. She was a good balance to the rest of the group that were so chaotic. I understand that she maybe like didn't bring a lot to the show and she didn't like necessarily show a lot of herself in the show, but I do think that she still kind of was like a nice character to have in the mix.
Well, that's it. I do feel like you need some like different people coming in to kind of balance out the ones who have been there forever. Because like it does, you know, Sonia can also kind of take it into some weird places, and without someone like who hasn't been there as long to kind of come in and like create a little bit of that conflict, or like I don't know, just like show how that's a little bit kooky. Yeah. So those are the people who else are yours?
Well, I mean, I always really liked the balance that Kristen and Heather had with one another. I thought that could be kind of interesting. I know that we got Heather a little bit in that weird RHONY season 13. And that wasn't like, it wasn't super successful. She obviously didn't vibe with Leah. But yeah, I definitely kind of, I liked Heather and Kristen together. So maybe if they'd kind of come as like a package deal or something, that would have been kind of interesting. But at the same time, I think even with Heather's podcast, she's probably now talked a little bit too much about RHONY to maybe not be act fast.
I think they like talked a lot about that. I forget which trip with the pirate and Luann.
The St. Bart's trip with Carol.
I was awoken by the sound of like a man that was Luann or something.
And then it goes out, it was Luann. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and all the things that were happening on that trip, I think they were a little bit too honest. So maybe it wasn't a good look for the show and they couldn't necessarily bring him
Yeah,
back. I don't
fair
know.
enough. And then Kristen, I think, is also friends with like Brandy and like maybe some of the other
That's
housewives.
true.
So
That was such a fun crossover. Oh my God, I loved that.
yeah, I know. I liked Kristen too.
Yeah, she was nice. She was interesting enough. She created some conflict. You know, that could have been cool.
Yeah, dream team. I like this idea. Let's push it.
Yeah, exactly.
Old RHONY in New York.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
are they now?
Yeah, we want to see it. We want to know.
Switching gears to Winter House,
Yeah.
episodes 3 to 5. So the highlights here for me was the Toms.
Yeah, I definitely was which is interesting. I was like, I saw the trailer. I was like, why are Tom and Tom there?
I
I don't
remember
understand.
you
I was
weren't
so
excited.
anti. I was not here for it. I have to admit though, I didn't like last season of Vanderpump. I barely even watched it. So like I was like, I don't understand this. Obviously now everybody's so excited for the next season of Vanderpump. I'm totally on board. I'm here for the Toms. They were the energy that we needed to like give us like a nice little reprieve in this household. It was great. I want them to come back next year.
But that's it. Like, it's always just so funny when you have these crossovers because I feel like it makes you realize like the vibe even more than you did before. And like the Toms coming in, the fact that Tom Schwartz was literally going through a divorce and still was a breath of fresh air is really saying something about how far Craig has brought down the vibes of this house. And yes, I am saying Craig mainly specifically.
Yeah, but it's true. But if you think about it, because last season in Winter House, I guess it was the first season of Winter House, Austin was going through that like breakup like with Madison, and he was like a total train wreck. Like when he found out that she was like dating somebody else or something, like he like couldn't like look at a magazine in a store. And now here we have like now here we have Tom who's like literally going through a divorce, like not telling anybody about it. You know, just being like very private about like what he's going through and still being like such a vibe.
I know. And also just like the Toms are probably like the truest love story that's ever come out of any housewife franchise.
It's so true. They're the ones that I think are gonna make it. Not worried about them at all.
Yeah, no, they were so fun. They just came in, they knew like they got the assignment, they were just like pumped up, ready to party. Tom Sandoval unclogs a sink that he did not clog.
Even like seeing his like bartending skills come out like this during the last couple episodes, I was like, this is endearing. Like I love this. It was so cute.
It was nice. Sometimes you need to take people out of their own franchise and somehow they're like so much more likable. Although I have to say, I've always had a soft spot for the Toms. Like I know at times, you know, Tom Schwartz is just like doesn't stand up for anyone, and like they have their moments
1,000,000%.
I still have a soft spot for both of them, especially their friendship.
Yeah, I know. And it's true. I think this was like the breath of fresh air that I needed to like be able to give Tom Sandoval like a break and like get off his back, because like I've been like so anti-Tom Sandoval for like so many years. And I was like, wow, no, I'm actually like really feeling like his whole thing as well now. Yeah, I think the problem has always been that I can't stand the fact that he gets in between like Tom and Katie, and now that that's like been removed, like I just don't think that was an issue for me in the same way.
Yeah. No, it's true. And like I feel like once they took Jax out, he became so much worse because you didn't have Jax to kind of take all the brunt of being the worst person in the group.
It's very true.
The number one guy in the group.
Yeah, the number one guy in the group, you know. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden Tom felt a lot of pressure to be the number one guy in the group.
But and him, and there was one scene too that stood out when I think Sandoval was asking Austin like if he had a girlfriend. He's like, oh, so you're not gonna hook up with anyone? Austin's like, no. Sandoval's like, well, if it makes you feel any better, like I'm not either. And it just kind of makes you think like him and Ariana like have been very strong for like years, and like it doesn't always have to be this big messy thing because you're in a relationship and on this show. Like it was just nice to see that.
Yeah, it was really nice to see that. And I do actually, I think I have like really started to appreciate their relationship and them allowing each other to kind of be like one another. I think that's been like a great thing. And I think that was what was probably missing from Tom and Katie's relationship potentially was that like they just both didn't really necessarily feel the freedom that they needed to like be able to be the other person, like be themselves.
That's true too. And I think
I don't
Ariana,
want to
like,
diagnose them, but
yeah, like we could maybe we'll have another episode
we'll have to do a
both
whole
of their
episode.
relationships.
Yeah, exactly. On Tequila Katie and Schwartzy.
But yeah, no, they were super nice. And honestly, like I wish I spent more time with them, especially like Schwartz was going through so much. He said like he just got served like with divorce and his dad was sick and he's obviously just going through it. I think we'll probably explore it a little bit more on Vanderpump Rules. So maybe they didn't want to like go too much into it, but like you could tell there's a lot happening there.
Yeah, but I would definitely vote them back both back for next year.
100%.
They were a great asset to the crowd, and a nice balance overall for us to get to see.
It was so nice. Also, just going back to that unclogging the sink was such a stark contrast, and the editors are so funny sometimes. Just like him doing that, and then you just like remember Craig saying that he's not going to clean up because he has money. Like the Toms literally have their own business. They have multiple bars. They are partnered with Lisa Vanderpump. Like obviously they have money and they don't need to be unclogging your sink.
No,
but they're doing it. And then they put a shot of Paige and Craig just like lying in bed, like as everyone else is cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and also like, you know, they weren't like breaking glass everywhere and thinking that breaking glass was like the best way to make sure that you had a good time. Like if you can't break glass, are you having really good actually having a really good time? Oh my god, I'm so tongue-tied today.
It's been a long day.
It's been a day.
But yeah, the Toms much appreciated. So actually, speaking of Paige and Craig. I feel like we're not gonna be able to get through a single episode of Winter House without talking about Craig because he just like sucks all the air out of the room.
Yeah, and I definitely think that they are. Well, I think it's interesting too because like this is our first time like really seeing them together fully as a couple. We obviously saw them a little bit in Summer House, or like the forming of their relationship in Summer House. We saw them together in Southern Charm, being like finally an actual couple, but like this is them being together for the first time, and this is us seeing them together really like fully for the first time. True. So I definitely think it makes sense that that's been such a big like focal point of the season so far.
And I don't think they were even together for that long when this filmed. Like Paige has come out and said, I don't know if it's like Watch What Happens Live, but she said that was still early on. And in Summer House, we see her kind of like give him shit a little bit more. And then also when she was on Southern Charm, they were only dating like a few months, which I hadn't realized it was like super new. So majority of their relationship has been on these shows, which is kind of interesting. Like, yeah, their dynamic is pretty funny. Like one thing Paige literally said, like Craig likes to be treated like a baby.
Did she?
It's always great.
That.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
She was telling that to Amanda.
Okay. Yeah.
I also really laughed when like Craig fell on the rock and then they had to stop the game, and like Paige literally said, I went face first into a table and I kept going, and I was like, go Paige. Like I actually laughed out loud.
I know, and I think that this is actually going to be a really interesting season for Paige because I think it's like bringing her personality out a lot more than we would normally see. Like I think, you know, obviously when the early years with like her versus Carl, kind of like in that like first season, we saw her like standing up for herself a little bit. But I think in a lot of ways, she's kind of like hid behind Hannah for the last few years. And, you know, we just don't necessarily like see her like too much in Summer House or whatever, being like kind of like really the kind of focal point or whatever it might be. Like we haven't really seen that much of her personality like really fully come out in the way that we're seeing it now in Summer House.
Yeah,
got a lot more of her. I'm excited.
I know I've always liked Paige. Like recently she's begun to like do, I don't know, turn me off a little bit more so through her relationship with Craig. It's just so funny that like in her interviews she's clearly like just had it with him, which like how can you not, right? Like and at least as a viewer you're like, well, at least you realize that. It is kind of strange because like they are still seemingly doing fine. This is not a good look in this time. Like, you know, she's even saying that like Craig is putting the house at like a stress level of 10, so she doesn't want to add to that. But I do hope that she like is a little bit more vocal in, you know, some of the ways that he's acting. because like at one point he literally said like, I've been mean to every one of her friends, and like she said nothing. Like as if he was like, I got away with this.
What a good girlfriend I have. Finally one that doesn't complain about everything, which is a whole other subject. Yeah, I can see what you mean about that. I do think that it is just that we're seeing like her. It's so interesting because we're seeing her at different stages in this relationship. Obviously, like, you know, when they're doing the post for these this event like 6 months later or whatever, you're even that they're probably already at the 1-year anniversary by the time that they're filming their reactions. Wait, okay, maybe another 1-year anniversary, but they're at least like further along into this relationship. When they're filming like the post for these interviews and stuff. So you do definitely get like a lot more of a sense of that dynamic. And I think it makes sense that you would then see her be a little bit like sharper and like a little bit more of like a understanding of how she really reacts to this stuff than she would when you're like still in the early stages of that relationship. You're still a little bit timid, a little bit more like reserved than you would be.
That's true. And a lot of like when he's acting outrageous, he's like also, you know, pretty drunk, and I feel like she knows that like it's just gonna pop off. So I think she's definitely treading lightly. Another thing that like I feel like is very evident now is that this is actually such a good like redemption season for Amanda.
Oh like, my god.
Yeah, like she's showing Paige so much grace, and she's being such a like good friend to her, and like she's not shoving any of it back in her face, as she very well could, because Paige really laid into her.
Yeah, big time. No, I think that's so true. And I do think that like we needed this Kyle and Amanda after last season of Summer House. Like that was so painful. Like I think so many people, like whether it was like editing, whether it was stress, whether it was exactly, whether it was like, you know, a little bit put on because it's a TV show and you have to produce something, like that last season with Kyle and Amanda was like almost unwatchable. And I think if they were still in that place in this season of Winter House, like nobody would be able to watch, right? Like that was so bad.
No.
So I think that we're really lucky, and we're appreciating that we're getting that version of Kyle and Amanda coming out, and we actually get to be like, okay, you guys made the right decision. I'm glad that you guys got married, because we were not sure there for a second.
No, and it's so honestly, like I wrote down multiple times, like it's so nice to see them getting along, and like you finally get to see like why, you know, that they are such a good match and they are so in love. And like there was one scene that like I bet it's like a blink and you miss it scene, and maybe I'm just weird that I found it funny, but I forget who she was talking to, but at some point she just kind of like Amanda breaks the conversation and she's upstairs and the boys are downstairs. And she's like, let's show the boys our butts. And then she just like shoves, but like she's wearing pants. And then you see the boys and like none of them notice. And then it just shoots to Kyle and he's going like,
like I did see that. That was so cute.
It was so cute. Like they just have each other's humor and it's like really nice. Yeah, it was much needed. I don't even feel like we've ever seen them like this.
They've never, like, I don't think they've ever had a good season. They've never had like a purely good season. Like it's just that doesn't exist.
They're like, yes, Craig, you took the heat off us.
Take the reins and run with it. Go with it. Have fun. Enjoy. We don't have to produce that anymore.
So, and then another possible redemption season, but we're not sure yet, is Austin.
In progress, TBD. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely think he did such a good job last season with Southern Charm. The whole like way they were handling the Taylor situation, I think, was really appreciated by the viewers. And you know, now here we are. We kind of know that like he and Olivia aren't together anymore. But it is kind of interesting to see him kind of like be in a relationship and be in this house and be in this kind of like situation with Sierra.
Yeah, I mean, it was only the end of Southern Charm where he really like had a few really, really good episodes where like, because with Austin, like I don't think he was ever like a horrible person, as a lot of the people are on that show. He's a really bad boyfriend. Like it's always kind of been shown that he's a really bad boyfriend. Him and Madison are super toxic together. Like she brought out a really bad part of him, and he has like a little bit of like FOMO. But yeah, I feel like he's I would like to continue to see this version of Austin.
Yeah, and I'm okay with him being like a little, because I think right now in this season, he's a little bit like walking the border between the two. Like he's obviously got like flirtations going on with Sierra. We know that he's got a relationship with Olivia. And you know, he doesn't need to be like a perfect, like, oh, I'm gonna like, you know, save Taylor kind of like storyline all the time. He can still be a little bit of both. But just that version of him that we saw when he was kind of like pitting Lindsay and Sierra against each other in Summer House was just like such a bad look.
No, and what
He
hurts,
became like public enemy number one
that
in the
was
Bravo
awful.
sphere.
Yeah, and that was so bad too, because it was just like exactly what Danielle said. Like, you're two women. Like, why
Mhm.
aren't you mad at Austin? Like, two
Yeah,
women ended up
exactly.
hating themselves, and he totally
Yeah.
like manipulated that situation.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him that made him start to change like this,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. I mean, then, you know, coming up next is Lindsay, and it seems like he's trying to blow up Lindsay and
Yeah.
Carl, so who
Yeah.
knows?
That'll be the interesting thing I think to see, because right now I do say, like, as I say, like he's kind of like walking the border. I'll be curious to see how the dynamic changes when he's all of a sudden got this person that like was supposedly like such a good friend for so long, like somebody that he was so close with, and now she's in a relationship, she's coming to the house, and he's not really sure. I'm not really sure about this and how it's all gonna play out.
No, that's it.
Yeah, but
So TBD. And then I
yeah.
guess the other really big thing, I feel like we've
So
never spoken about Jason and Rachel, and it's just
oh
because
yeah,
they're just like
they're just
being cute and
being
like
cute over there, like kind of like, okay, well this is happening,
I
but
like Rachel though. I like Rachel a
I
lot.
do like Rachel. I really hope that Rachel comes back next season. I don't think she'll be in Summer House, but I'd be curious to see her again at Winter House.
Yeah, she brings like a
that'd be
really
cool.
fun, like casual and like normal
Yeah,
person vibe to the
yeah,
house, but like her
yeah.
and Jason just don't seem to have any sort of chemistry. I
No
feel like they're
chemistry.
both just like,
No,
well,
you're
we're
here.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very much it. And I think it's also, that's a bit of what happens when you're one of the like kind of like lower cast members. Like you know that you need to do something to like get you to come back next year. Like this is such an incredible opportunity. How could you not want to be back next year? Especially for like just, you know, probably the little bit of change that it puts in your pocket.
True.
So I think that they also kind of like
I mean,
have like played that up a little bit too.
it's also like vacation goggles. Like
Oh, a million
they're
percent.
like just, you know, they're there for 2 weeks, and like
Yeah.
maybe she did think that she was into him or vice
Yeah.
versa. But
And
it
he's
looks like
pretty cute. So
Jason's
I
super
wouldn't blame
cute.
her. Yeah.
And he it looks like she has a boyfriend now though, so that obviously didn't work
Oh,
out.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like
Cool, cool, cool.
soft launch on Instagram, like
Oh,
this
very
week or
nice.
last week.
Oh, good for her. I'd love to see it.
And then the last thing to talk about
Yeah.
is Jessica and Corey. I don't
Jessica
even
and
want to talk about
Corey.
them because I find them so obnoxious.
Oh God, they really are. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier this week that was saying that Corey is basically just like he's a reality show contestant from a different network. Like
I listened to that one
did
too.
you hear it as
Yeah.
well? And I completely agree with that. I just don't think that like it makes any sense for him to like be on here.
He should go on the challenge.
He should go on the challenge. He should go on Jersey Shore. Like he should go on something that's not Bravo. And I think his whole like weird like dating advice that we're seeing and like all this like weird like peacocking that
It's
he's
like
kind of
so
doing.
red flag, red flag, red flag.
It's so red flag. It's so off brand. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And like considering the demographic, like I'm kind of surprised that like he's on there. But yeah, it's interesting.
I saw the funniest thing on social media, which was like, I'm pretty sure Corey's using the Dennis system on Jessica.
What is that?
The Dennis system is from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh,
that
no way.
Dennis puts out. It's called
Okay.
So it spells out Dennis, and it's demonstrate value, engage phically, nurture dependence, neglect emotionally, inspire hope, separate entirely.
Oh my God, that's it.
And like at first it was funny.
No,
well, I mean they're
so
not
true.
that, but like at first I laughed at this. But then I saw this last episode and you're like, oh my God, this this is beyond playing a game. Like I don't like Jessica and I feel bad for her because he's like next level messing with her. Like it's not fun to watch.
I don't think she's very old too. Like I think she's like pretty young. Like I think she's around Sierra's age. So I'm like, I'm like, oh, I just feel bad for you. Like, it's not fun. It's not easy to be at that stage in your life and like still a little pretty unsure of yourself, which she clearly is. So I do feel bad that we're kind of like just like watching her be like preyed upon by like this like douchebag.
Yeah, it's gross. Like it's not fun. And then like she doesn't, you know, that aside, like her character is not super fun to watch because she just like continuously wants us to know how hot she is, and it's like, we get it, like this doesn't need to be your whole personality. You clearly are going through things that you need to sort out, but she's also young, so to your point too, like as a viewer you just feel uncomfortable, like it's not a fun plot.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think she's just felt so across the board throughout these last, it's only been 5 episodes, but it feels like we've been on such a journey with Jessica, like, and I don't love the journey. I'm not enjoying the ride.
No, that's it. And then also what's funny is like she doesn't promote it on social media at all. Like there's no mention of Winter House. You know, granted, neither does Paige that much. The rest of the cast does, but I thought that was funny because this is like her first season, and like there's no, like, you would never know she was on the show from her Instagram.
But I wonder if that kind of like points to this like not having been like a great experience for her, right? Like this is kind of like especially if you were like watching back and you're like, oh great, so there was Luke and then there was like, now there's Corey, and like now I'm like going after these girls and they're like not happy about it, and it's just like, yeah, that would not be a fun thing to like kind of revisit, and that you'd also kind of just probably want to like forget about.
Yeah,
if it were me. But yeah, I can, yeah, though at the same time, like, again, you know, you're supposed to capitalize on these experiences, you're supposed to like take all the viewership that you can get and to like be able to like build your brand or whatever it is. But yeah,
the main problem I'm finding with like all of the series, like all of the Housewives and the affiliates, is just like the best ones are built on like real friendships, or you know, New Jersey, which was based on families at the beginning. And I feel like they're just getting further and further away from this, and they're just getting like the most like, you know, influential, like, or you know, influencer bases who have a big following and putting them together, and like it's just not as like real. Like the beginning of Summer House was just a bunch of friends who like have
happen to be going to like
a share
house.
Yeah,
exactly, in the summertime, and that was the entire premise. It was so simple. Vanderpump Rules, this is, well, I mean, to a certain extent I'm sure Vanderpump Rules was a little bit manufactured, but for the most part these were all people that were like, they really were sleeping together, they really were fighting with one another, they really were going out like and partying together, and they really were like working at this bar together. And that was just like the best TV.
I know. I just like, are we forever just chasing these dreams? But then again, you have Salt Lake City, which is like still fun to watch. It's like a newer one, but like that's been fun from the beginning. But we're still chasing that.
We are
the beginning.
I think one thing that's kind of happening, and now this is turning into like the evolution of reality TV, but I think that
should do an episode. We should do one on that.
I would love to. I'm here for it. But you have seasons like Salt Lake City, like this season in particular, where you're having the reunions just filmed. They've just started filming again because they have supposedly Jen Shah's trials about to start. No, it's okay. And then you also have like their social media impacting their reactions to the reunion, but then also their social media impacting what's happening live. So like, for instance, with the Lisa Barlow and Heather fight that's happening right now, that's a fight that happened on social media and would have normally just happened on social media had they not started filming right away.
Oh, and it carried into the show.
It's in reaction to the reunion, and it's all, exactly, it's all carrying into the show. And so that's kind of like happening. And so I think that the only way that like reality TV can kind of like get past this social media influence and like recapture what it was feeling at the beginning is by like having the producers know how to produce these shows. Like having like the Wendy, what is it called? The hot mic moment with Wendy, them like being willing to like expose the fourth wall and actually like show those things. And I think that we are starting to see that more and more.
Yeah.
And I think it's just becoming more and more necessary because that's how you get the reality part of reality TV.
It's so true. And I heard that too about like Summer House or Winter House. Like, you know, now we know that something happened in Summer House, that Danielle and Lindsay are like not really friends anymore. And like now everyone wants to know about that it almost like diminishes the show that we're watching now, because we also kind of like know how it ends. Like, like Austin, we know he's not with Olivia anymore. Like, no, super interesting. I think we should definitely do an episode on the evolution of Real Housewife franchises.
No, I'm super down. We should totally do that. That'd be so fun.